Don't scroll. Stay with this message for just a moment because what you are about to hear may feel strangely familiar in a way you cannot explain. There are thousands of videos, thousands of voices, and countless messages competing for your attention every single day, yet somehow you arrived here at this exact moment. Maybe you clicked out of curiosity, maybe you felt an unexplainable pull, or maybe your heart has been searching for an answer it could never put into words. Whatever brought you here, don't rush away yet. Imagine for a moment that somewhere, someone has been carrying thoughts about you that have become too heavy to keep hidden. Imagine that every silent wish, every unanswered question, every lonely night, and every unexpected dream has been leading toward this very moment. Your soulmate has been trying to send a message in ways you may not have recognized. Through unexpected memories, repeating numbers, familiar songs, strange coincidences, and quiet feelings that appeared for no obvious reason. None of those moments were meaningless. They were gentle reminders that something important has been moving behind the scenes long before today. Listen carefully because this message is not asking you to fear the future. It is asking you to see it differently. There is a reason your heart has refused to completely let go of hope. There is a reason you have felt that something beautiful is getting closer even when life seemed uncertain. Your soulmate wants you to know that distance has never erased the connection between your hearts. Time has never weakened what was meant to find its way back. Every challenge has only been preparing both of you to recognize each other more clearly when the right moment finally arrives. So before you scroll away, promise yourself that you will stay until the end. Because every sentence builds towards something your heart may have needed to hear for a very long time. Your soulmate's message begins with something simple but incredibly important. They want you to stop blaming yourself for everything that has gone wrong. They know you have replayed old memories over and over, wondering if different choices could have changed everything. They know you have questioned your worth after disappointments and moments that left you feeling forgotten. But if they could stand in front of you today, they would gently tell you that none of those painful chapters define who you truly are. They see the strength you developed while no one was watching. They see the kindness you continued to show even after your heart was hurt. They see the courage it took for you to keep moving forward on days when giving up seemed easier. That is the version of you they admire most. Not the perfect version. The real one. The one who kept believing despite uncertainty. The one who continued growing, even while carrying invisible pain. They want you to know that they have changed too. Life has humbled them, taught them lessons, and shown them that genuine love cannot be replaced by temporary distractions. They have realized that meaningful connections are built on honesty, patience, respect, and understanding rather than appearances or fleeting excitement. Every experience they once believed was taking them away from you was quietly guiding them back toward the person they were always meant to become. Your soulmate wishes they could tell you how many times your presence has appeared in their thoughts without warning. A familiar smile in a crowd reminded them of someone they had never fully met. A quiet sunset made them wonder whether you were looking at the same sky. A peaceful morning brought an unexpected feeling that somewhere, someone was hoping for the same future they secretly dreamed about. Little by little those moments became impossible to ignore. They began to understand that some connections are felt before they are fully understood. They want you to release the fear that you have somehow missed your chance. Love is not always about perfect timing. Sometimes it arrives only after two hearts have learned everything they needed to learn apart. Every delay carried a purpose. Every closed door protected you from a path that was never truly yours. Every disappointment created space for something far more meaningful than you imagined. Your soulmate hopes you will stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. Your story was never meant to unfold like theirs. Your happiness does not have another person's schedule. The future waiting for you cannot be measured by someone else's timeline. They want you to trust your own path even when it feels slower than expected. They want you to wake up each morning believing that your life is still full of possibilities. They hope you choose peace instead of constant worry. They hope you choose self-respect instead of chasing people who never valued your heart. They hope you choose healing instead of repeating old pain. Most of all, they hope you never lose the kindness that makes you uniquely you. Because that kindness is one of the very reasons your connection remains so powerful. The message they have carried for so long is finally becoming clear. They are no longer searching for perfection. They are searching for truth. They want conversations that last for hours, quiet moments that feel safe, laughter that heals difficult days, and a partnership built on trust rather than fear. They believe that the strongest relationships are created when two people encourage each other to become better, without asking either person to become someone else. If you have been wondering whether your future still holds love, let this message remind you that hope is never wasted when it inspires you to keep growing. Continue becoming the person you are proud of regardless of who is watching. Continue believing that meaningful connections still exist. Continue protecting your peace while remaining open to genuine opportunities. Your soulmate wants you to know that when your paths finally cross in the way life intends, they hope you recognize each other. Not because everything feels dramatic, but because everything feels unexpectedly calm. It will feel like arriving home after a very long journey. It will feel like finally understanding why so many chapters had to happen exactly as they did. And when that moment comes, both of you will realize that the greatest change did not begin on the day you met. It began on the day you chose hope over fear, healing over regret, and faith in tomorrow over the disappointments of yesterday. That is the message your soulmate has been carrying all along, and perhaps the most important part is this: never stop believing that your story still has beautiful chapters waiting to be written. The message did not end there. In fact, that was only the beginning of everything your heart was about to discover. If this were a story unfolding before your eyes, this is the moment where everything would begin to change. Somewhere, far away, your soulmate sat alone in complete silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because every word they wanted to speak suddenly felt too important to rush. They looked back at every chapter of their journey and realized that every unexpected turn, every unanswered question, every delayed opportunity, and every lesson had slowly transformed them into someone capable of appreciating a connection built on honesty instead of illusion. For the first time, they stopped asking why life had taken so long and started asking what they could become before the next chapter arrived. That single change in perspective opened a door they never noticed before. Instead of living in regret, they began living with gratitude. Instead of chasing certainty, they embraced patience. And with every quiet step forward, they felt as though an invisible thread was gently guiding them toward a future they could not yet see but somehow trusted. Meanwhile, your own journey was changing in ways that seemed ordinary on the surface but meaningful beneath it. The small decisions you made each day, choosing kindness when frustration felt easier, choosing hope when disappointment tried to convince you otherwise, choosing to keep growing instead of remaining trapped in yesterday, were slowly shaping the person you were becoming. Neither of you realized that these quiet moments mattered more than dramatic events ever could. Great stories are rarely changed by a single spectacular moment alone. They are changed by countless small choices that slowly reshape two lives until they are finally ready to meet at exactly the right time. If someone had watched both journeys from above, they would have noticed something remarkable. Every setback had quietly become preparation. Every closed chapter had become a lesson. Every season of waiting had created wisdom that would have been impossible to gain any other way. The future was not being delayed without purpose. It was being built piece by piece. And although neither heart could fully understand the entire picture, both continued moving forward one day at a time. There were evenings when memories returned unexpectedly, mornings when a strange sense of optimism appeared without explanation, and moments when familiar places somehow felt completely different because both hearts had changed from within. The greatest transformation was not happening around them. It was happening inside them. Fear slowly made room for confidence. Doubt quietly stepped aside for clarity. Old expectations faded and were replaced by something much stronger, a quiet belief that whatever belonged in their lives would arrive without forcing, pretending, or losing themselves along the way. That realization became the turning point of the story. No longer were they searching desperately for answers outside themselves. Instead, they became the kind of people capable of recognizing something meaningful when it finally appeared. They learned to value peaceful conversations more than empty promises, genuine understanding more than temporary excitement, and consistent kindness more than impressive words. By the time destiny allowed their paths to draw closer, neither of them resembled the people they once were. They had grown through patience, strengthened through challenges, and softened through compassion. They understood that lasting love was never about perfection. It was about choosing one another again and again, with honesty, respect, and courage. And as this chapter comes to a close, one quiet thought remains. Sometimes the greatest changes begin long before anyone notices them. They begin in silence, through healing, through growth, through hope that refuses to disappear. Every sunrise becomes another opportunity to become the person you are meant to be, and every step forward becomes another page in a story that is still unfolding. Whatever tomorrow brings. The most meaningful chapter has never been about predicting the future. It has always been about becoming ready for it. As the days continued to pass, the story unfolded in ways neither heart could have predicted. There was no dramatic announcement, no perfect sign that instantly explained everything. Instead, change arrived quietly, almost invisibly, like the first light of dawn, slowly replacing the darkness without asking for attention. In another part of the world, your soulmate found themselves pausing more often than usual. Familiar places suddenly carried unfamiliar emotions. Conversations that once seemed ordinary began reminding them of the kind of connection they truly wanted in their life. They started noticing qualities they had overlooked before: patience instead of perfection, honesty instead of appearance, peace instead of excitement alone. Every experience gently reshaped the picture they carried in their heart. At the same time, your own journey continued moving forward. There were moments when life still felt uncertain, moments when old questions returned, but something inside you had become different. You no longer searched for answers in every coincidence. Instead, you began building a life filled with purpose, kindness, learning, and hope. You discovered that the strongest foundation for any future relationship was becoming someone who felt complete within themselves. That quiet confidence changed the way you walked through each day. You smiled more often, worried a little less, and slowly released the weight of expectations that had followed you for so long. If this story teaches anything, it is that meaningful connections are strengthened not by rushing toward an ending but by allowing every chapter to shape the people within it. Your soulmate's path and your own path continued growing closer, not because of magic, but because both lives were moving toward greater understanding. Every lesson made future conversations deeper. Every challenge made future trust stronger. Every moment of growth prepared both hearts to recognize something real instead of something temporary. One evening, as the sun disappeared below the horizon, your soulmate quietly wrote down a single sentence in a journal. It was not addressed to anyone in particular, yet it captured everything they had learned. The right connection is worth becoming the right person for. They closed the journal with a peaceful smile, not because every question had been answered, but because they finally understood that hope becomes strongest when it is supported by patience and action. And somewhere else, without knowing those exact words had been written, you found yourself making a similar promise, to continue growing, to remain open to genuine kindness, and to never allow past disappointments to define the chapters still waiting ahead. Perhaps that is where this part of the story truly leaves us. Not with certainty about tomorrow, but with confidence that the future is shaped by the choices we make today. Every sunrise offers another chance to learn, to heal, to forgive, and to become someone capable of recognizing authentic love when it arrives. The next chapter is not about rushing toward an ending. It is about continuing the journey with courage, wisdom, and the quiet belief that the most meaningful stories are written one honest step at a time. The following morning arrived with an unusual sense of calm. Nothing about the world looked dramatically different, yet both journeys had quietly entered a new chapter. The lessons of the past no longer felt like heavy burdens. They had become reminders of how much each person had grown. Your soulmate spent more time paying attention to the little things, a kind conversation with a stranger, the warmth of the morning sunlight, the comfort of a familiar place, the realization that happiness often begins with appreciating what already exists. These ordinary moments slowly reshaped the way they looked at life. They realized that meaningful relationships are not built through grand promises alone, but through everyday acts of respect, patience, and genuine care. At the same time, your own story continued to unfold with the same quiet strength. Instead of searching endlessly for signs that would explain the future, you began investing your energy in becoming the best version of yourself. You explored new interests, strengthened old friendships, learned from past mistakes, and discovered that confidence grows when your actions match your values. Every small step forward added another layer of resilience. Every challenge you overcame became proof that your future did not have to resemble your past. If someone had watched both stories side by side, they would have noticed that the distance between the two paths was becoming smaller. Not because either person was chasing the other, but because both were moving toward the same qualities: honesty, compassion, emotional maturity, and hope. Those shared values became the invisible bridge connecting two separate journeys. One quiet evening, your soulmate reflected on everything they had learned and understood that the greatest gift they could one day offer another person was not perfection but authenticity. They no longer wanted to hide behind fear or unrealistic expectations. They wanted to build a future based on open conversations, mutual encouragement, and the freedom for both people to keep growing together. That realization filled them with a sense of peace they had never experienced before. Meanwhile, you found yourself letting go of the pressure to have every answer immediately. Life felt lighter when you accepted that some chapters reveal their meaning only after time has passed. The uncertainty that once seemed frightening slowly became a source of possibility. Instead of asking whether everything would work out exactly as imagined, you began asking how you could make today meaningful regardless of tomorrow. That simple shift transformed the entire direction of your story. It reminded you that hope is strongest when it inspires action, rather than waiting. And so this chapter closes with both lives continuing forward, each guided not by certainty but by character, kindness, and quiet determination. Whatever the future may hold, the foundation has already been laid through patience, self-discovery, and the courage to keep moving forward. Sometimes the most remarkable endings begin with ordinary days that seem almost unnoticed, and perhaps that is the beauty of this story. The next chapter is waiting. Not because fate demands it, but because both hearts have become ready to write it with wisdom, sincerity, and the confidence that every meaningful journey is built one honest choice at a time. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet transformation continued. There were still ordinary mornings, familiar routines, and moments that seemed no different from any other, yet beneath the surface something meaningful was taking shape. Your soulmate no longer measured life by what had not happened. Instead, they began noticing how much they had already become. They learned that real strength often grows in silence, away from applause, away from recognition, in the simple decision to keep moving forward with kindness even after disappointment. That lesson changed the way they looked at every relationship, every conversation, and every possibility waiting beyond the horizon. At the same time, your own path became brighter in unexpected ways. You started recognizing opportunities that once would have gone unnoticed. New ideas inspired you. Old fears slowly lost their power. The weight of comparing yourself to others became lighter until one day you realized you had stopped comparing altogether. You were no longer trying to become someone else's version of success or happiness. You were becoming your own. That quiet confidence began influencing every part of your life. Your words carried more sincerity. Your choices reflected greater wisdom. The future no longer felt like something to fear but something to prepare for with patience and purpose. If this were a film, this would be the moment where the audience begins to understand that the greatest turning points rarely arrive with dramatic music or sudden revelations. They arrive through countless small decisions that slowly reshape an entire life. Every kind action, every honest conversation, every lesson accepted instead of resisted became another piece of a future neither of you could fully imagine yet. One evening, your soulmate stood beneath a sky filled with stars and smiled without needing a reason. For the first time in a long while, they felt complete without demanding certainty from tomorrow. They understood that meaningful love is never about rescuing someone from loneliness. It is about two whole people choosing to walk the same road with respect, encouragement, and trust. That realization filled them with hope. Not because they suddenly knew exactly what would happen next, but because they knew who they wanted to be regardless of the outcome. Meanwhile, you found yourself reflecting on your own journey with a similar sense of gratitude. The difficult chapters had not disappeared, but they no longer controlled the story. They had become reminders of your resilience rather than symbols of defeat. You realized that every challenge had quietly taught you patience, every setback had strengthened your character, and every unanswered question had encouraged you to keep growing instead of giving up. Looking back, you could finally appreciate how far you had come. Looking ahead, you felt something even more valuable than certainty: quiet optimism. And perhaps that is where this chapter leaves us, not at the end of the story, but at the beginning of a future built on authenticity instead of illusion. Both journeys continue, shaped by compassion, honesty, and the willingness to embrace whatever comes next with courage. The pages that remain unwritten are not empty because they lack meaning. They are empty because they are waiting to be filled with choices, growth, shared moments, and the simple truth that the most unforgettable stories are created one genuine day at a time. Another season quietly arrived, and with it came a deeper understanding of everything that had happened before. Looking back, it became clear that the moments which once felt like delays had actually been opportunities to grow. Your soulmate found themselves becoming more intentional with every decision they made. They no longer rushed through conversations or overlooked the importance of small gestures. They had learned that trust is built one honest moment at a time, and that lasting relationships are strengthened by consistency rather than grand declarations. Every experience had gently reshaped the person they were becoming, and for the first time, they felt ready to welcome the future without carrying the weight of yesterday. On your own journey, something similar was happening. You discovered a quiet confidence that did not depend on outside approval. You celebrated small victories that once would have gone unnoticed. You appreciated peaceful mornings, meaningful conversations, and the simple satisfaction of knowing you were becoming more patient, more compassionate, and more resilient with each passing day. Instead of asking why certain things had taken so long, you began asking what you could learn from every chapter. That single question changed everything. Life no longer felt like a series of obstacles standing in your way. It became a path of steady growth, revealing new opportunities exactly when you were ready to recognize them. If someone had watched these two journeys unfold side by side, they would have seen that the distance between them continued to narrow, not because either person was chasing an imagined destination, but because both were growing toward the same values. They were learning to communicate with honesty, to listen with empathy, to forgive without forgetting the lessons, and to appreciate the quiet moments that often matter more than dramatic ones. Those shared values became the strongest foundation either of them could have hoped for. One afternoon, your soulmate paused while watching the sunlight reflect across a calm lake. The stillness reminded them that the clearest reflections appear when the water is undisturbed. In the same way, they realized that the clearest understanding of life comes when the mind is no longer overwhelmed by fear or impatience. They smiled, grateful not because every mystery had been solved, but because they had discovered peace within the uncertainty. At nearly the same time, you experienced your own quiet realization. You understood that happiness had never been waiting at some distant finish line. It had been growing little by little through every act of kindness, every lesson accepted with humility, and every step taken with courage despite not knowing exactly what lay ahead. That understanding brought a sense of freedom unlike anything you had felt before. The future no longer seemed intimidating. It felt welcoming, filled with possibilities that would reveal themselves one chapter at a time. And so the story continues, not with a dramatic ending, but with a promise that meaningful journeys are rarely defined by a single unforgettable moment. They are shaped by countless ordinary days lived with integrity, hope, and compassion. Every sunrise offers another chance to become wiser than yesterday, every conversation carries the possibility of deeper understanding, and every page still waiting to be written reminds us that the most enduring stories are created through patience, authenticity, and the courage to keep moving forward, one honest step at a time. Time continued. To move quietly forward, and with every passing day the story gained a little more depth. Neither journey was perfect. There were still moments of uncertainty, unexpected changes, and questions that could not yet be answered. But something important had changed within both hearts. They no longer believed that every unanswered question was a reason to lose hope. Instead, they understood that some of life's most meaningful chapters unfold slowly, revealing their purpose only after enough time has passed to appreciate them. Your soulmate had begun to notice how different their outlook had become. They found themselves listening more carefully when others spoke, appreciating moments of silence instead of trying to fill every pause, and recognizing that true connection is built through understanding rather than assumption. They realized that the future they wanted was not one filled with constant excitement, but one filled with trust, laughter, honesty, and the comfort of knowing that someone genuinely cared. That realization became the quiet compass guiding every decision they made. Meanwhile, your own path continued to reveal unexpected opportunities for growth. Challenges that once felt overwhelming no longer carried the same weight because you had developed the confidence to face them one step at a time. You learned that resilience is not about never feeling discouraged. It is about continuing to move forward even when the destination is still hidden beyond the horizon. Every lesson became another reminder that growth often happens so gradually we only recognize it when we pause to look back. If these two stories could be viewed together from above, the pattern would finally become clear. Neither journey had been wasted. Every difficult season had encouraged greater patience. Every disappointment had sharpened wisdom. Every success had been balanced with humility. Without realizing it, both lives had been shaped by the same quiet principles, becoming stronger not through dramatic events but through countless ordinary choices made with sincerity. One evening, your soulmate sat beneath a sky slowly filling with stars. Instead of wondering what tomorrow might bring, they found themselves appreciating the present moment. They smiled at how far they had come, grateful for every lesson that had helped them become kinder, more understanding, and more authentic than they had once been. At nearly the same time, you experienced your own moment of reflection. Looking around at the life you were building, you noticed that hope no longer felt fragile. It had become steady, grounded in your own actions rather than circumstances beyond your control. You realized that the greatest gift you could give your future was to continue living with integrity today. As the night grew quieter, both stories continued moving forward, not toward a perfect ending, but toward lives shaped by compassion, courage, and genuine human connection. The pages ahead remained unwritten, inviting new experiences, unexpected friendships, meaningful conversations, and opportunities to keep becoming the people you hoped to be. Perhaps that is the true heart of this story. The future is not something we simply wait to discover. It is something we help create through every thoughtful choice, every act of kindness, every lesson accepted with humility, and every new day approached with hope. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another chapter is already beginning, waiting patiently to be written one honest moment at a time. The next chapter began so quietly that neither of them realized they had already stepped into it. Life continued with its familiar rhythm, yet everything felt slightly different because both hearts had changed from within. The world around them had not transformed overnight, but the way they looked at the world certainly had. Your soulmate found themselves noticing the value of moments that once seemed insignificant. A conversation shared over a simple meal, the sound of laughter echoing through an ordinary afternoon, the comfort of watching the rain fall without feeling the need to hurry anywhere. These experiences reminded them that a meaningful life is rarely built from extraordinary events alone. It is built from ordinary days lived with intention, gratitude, and sincerity. Those quiet realizations slowly became the foundation of the future they hoped to create. At the same time, your own journey continued revealing unexpected strengths. The person you had become was not the same person who had once questioned every setback or worried that every closed door meant the end of an opportunity. You now understood that every ending creates space for a beginning that could never exist otherwise. That understanding gave you the courage to welcome change. Instead of resisting it, you began making decisions that reflected your values rather than your fears. You chose honesty even when it felt difficult. You chose patience when rushing seemed easier. You chose kindness without expecting immediate rewards. Each of those choices quietly shaped the story in ways that could not yet be seen but would one day become impossible to ignore. Somewhere else, your soulmate reached a similar conclusion. They realized that the future they dreamed about would not be built through perfect circumstances but through consistent effort, mutual respect, and a willingness to keep learning. They accepted that every meaningful relationship requires listening as much as speaking, encouraging as much as receiving encouragement, and offering understanding even when complete agreement is impossible. Those lessons brought a calm confidence they had never experienced before. They no longer searched for certainty in every situation. Instead, they trusted that living with integrity would naturally lead them toward the people and opportunities meant to become part of their story. As another evening arrived, both journeys continued moving forward beneath the same wide sky, each carrying different memories yet guided by remarkably similar hopes. The future remained unwritten, not because it lacked direction, but because it was waiting for countless small choices to shape it. Every sunrise would offer another chance to grow. Every conversation would offer another chance to understand. Every challenge would offer another opportunity to become wiser than before. Looking ahead, there was no need to know every detail of what tomorrow might bring. It was enough to know that character grows through patience, hope becomes stronger through action, and meaningful connections are nurtured by authenticity rather than appearances. And so the story continues, not rushing toward its conclusion, but unfolding with quiet purpose, reminding us that the most enduring journeys are not remembered for a single dramatic moment. They are remembered for the steady accumulation of compassion, resilience, honesty, and the countless ordinary choices that slowly become an extraordinary life. With each passing day, the story became less about waiting for a single life-changing moment and more about recognizing the quiet beauty hidden inside everyday life. Your soulmate had reached a place where they no longer measured progress by how quickly everything came together. Instead, they measured it by the peace they felt when they looked at the person they were becoming. They noticed that kindness had become easier, patience had become stronger, and gratitude had replaced many of the worries that once occupied their thoughts. They understood that the greatest transformations often happen so gradually that they are almost invisible until one day you realize you have become someone entirely different from the person you used to be. At the same time, your own path continued unfolding with quiet confidence. You found yourself embracing opportunities that once seemed intimidating. New conversations brought fresh perspectives. Familiar places inspired different emotions because you were no longer carrying the same fears into them. Every experience added another layer of wisdom, reminding you that growth is not measured by perfection but by the willingness to keep learning. Looking back no longer filled you with regret. Instead, it filled you with appreciation for Every lesson that had prepared you for the chapters still waiting ahead. If someone could observe both journeys from a distance, they would notice something remarkable. Although the paths were different, the direction was becoming increasingly similar. Both lives were moving toward authenticity. Both were discovering that trust begins with honesty, that lasting happiness grows from gratitude, and that genuine connection flourishes where respect and compassion are allowed to take root. These shared discoveries quietly became the bridge connecting two separate stories into one larger journey. One calm evening, your soulmate sat by a window as the last light of the day faded across the horizon. There was no urgency in their thoughts, only a quiet sense of appreciation for everything life had taught them. They realized that every challenge had strengthened their character, every disappointment had refined their understanding, and every unexpected detour had revealed something valuable about themselves. They smiled, not because every dream had already come true, but because they had learned to find meaning in the journey itself. At nearly the same moment, you experienced a similar realization. You noticed how much lighter your heart had become simply because you had stopped trying to control every outcome. Instead of demanding certainty from the future, you focused on living each day with purpose, kindness, and sincerity. That choice transformed the way you experienced life. The unknown no longer felt frightening. It felt full of possibility. And perhaps that is where this chapter gently comes to rest. Not at the end of the journey, but at another meaningful beginning. The pages ahead remain unwritten, inviting new experiences, deeper understanding, unexpected opportunities, and moments of quiet joy that cannot be rushed. Whatever lies beyond the next horizon will be shaped not by a single dramatic event, but by the countless thoughtful decisions made every day. One conversation, one act of kindness, one lesson accepted with humility, and one hopeful step after another. This is how enduring stories are written, and this is how the journey continues, carrying both hearts toward a future built on authenticity, resilience, and the quiet confidence that every meaningful chapter arrives exactly when it is ready to be lived.